"My ex will be at Christmas dinner," he said, his tone so casual it almost sounded like a joke. "Try not to make it awkward." I laughed softly, too softly, because what else could I do? The sound came out brittle, like glass cracking. I remember the lights on the tree flickering, blinking nervously as if they sensed it too. The smell of cinnamon filled the room, warm and sweet, but it made my throat tighten instead of comforting me. The taste of a truth I couldn't swallow lingered at the back of my tongue, sharp and bitter. He went back to scrolling his phone, humming under his breath, thinking I'd accepted it. Thinking I'd moved on. Oh, he had no idea. My fingers trembled slightly as I adjusted one of the ornaments, catching my own reflection in the glossy surface of his screen. My smile looked calm, gentle even, but behind my eyes something was changing. What he didn't see was my reflection in that same screen, quietly, slowly, planning something he'd never forget. He thought this Christmas would test my patience. Poor man. He didn't realize it would test his fate. Now tell me, if you discovered the person you loved was inviting their past into your home, would you pour another glass of wine and pretend it didn't sting? Would you laugh it off with a shaky ha 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 and let the moment fade? Or would you feel that ache deep in your chest, the kind that whispers, enough, and quietly, carefully, rewrite the ending? Because when the doorbell rang that night, even the music stopped. The laughter died in my throat. The air felt too heavy to breathe. And in that frozen silence, when his smile faltered, when his confidence turned to confusion, when the color drained from his face, he finally learned what kind of woman I really am. And for the first time in years, I almost smiled for real. Our apartment sat on the 12th floor, overlooking the frozen streets of Lincoln Park. From up there, the world looked peaceful, so peaceful it almost hurt. Like nothing bad could ever touch us, ha ha ha. If only that were true. People always said we were the couple that had it all. The right address, the right smiles, the right kind of love you post about once and then never question again. I used to believe them. I really did. I'm Bella Whitmore, 30, event planner turned housewife, the woman who color codes the spice rack because she can't control anything else. Once, I built my life around orchestrating beauty, perfect tablescapes, flawless lighting, guests leaving with memories instead of complaints. Now, I just make sure the napkins match the plates Hudson likes. He was the kind of man who filled a room without trying. Charismatic, polished, always on. When we first met, he told me he admired my attention to detail. Back then, I thought that meant he loved how my mind worked. Now, I think he just liked how easy it was to shape it. The early days glowed. Candlelit dinners, shared playlists, weekend getaways that smelled like cedar cabins and champagne. He used to bring me coffee in bed, kiss my forehead, call me his lucky charm. Those moments, those sweet, careless moments, they still live somewhere deep in my chest. Somewhere between that charm and today's silence, something changed. Maybe it was the long hours, the missed dinners, the new passwords on his phone. Or maybe it was me, the way I learned to smile through the things I wasn't supposed to ask about. Our apartment feels like him now. Gray, expensive, lifeless. Every piece chosen by Hudson, leather, glass, marble, cold surfaces that don't leave fingerprints. Sometimes I walk through it barefoot just to feel something real. The fridge hums like a quiet reminder that this isn't a home. It's a display. Even the smell, sage and sandalwood, his favorite candle, smells like control. He says I overthink. That I get too emotional. Ha ha ha. Maybe I do. Maybe that's all I have left. He says I should be grateful for the life he provides. And I am, at least out loud. That's part of the deal. But lately, I've started catching things. Small, sharp details that don't fit the picture. The scent of perfume that isn't mine clinging to his coat. The late-night showers. The second phone charger tucked in his briefcase. The way his voice softens when he says certain names. Willow. Always, Willow thinks. Willow said. A ghost slipping through our walls. Sometimes I tell myself I'm imagining it. Other times I catch him staring at his reflection instead of me. like he's checking how the story looks from the outside. Our dinners have become rehearsals, me playing the patient wife, him playing the busy man whose success depends on being elsewhere. He talks about markets, about deals, about a future that sounds like a press release. I nod, refill his glass, pretend it doesn't sting when he checks his phone mid-sentence. We used to talk about vacations, art, names for the baby we never had. Now the only thing we plan together is silence. People think betrayal starts with lies. It doesn't. It starts with tone, the way a voice turns polite, careful, professional, the way someone stops saying we. There's a drawer in our kitchen filled with things I can't throw away. A wine cork from our honeymoon, ticket stubs from a concert he left early for, a list of New Year's resolutions we never finished. Sometimes I open it when he's not home, just to remember that once upon a time, we promised each other something that wasn't a strategy. I run my fingers over the cork and whisper, "We used to laugh here, remember?" Weeping quietly, I close it before the memories can spill out. The night he told me about Christmas dinner, that drawer was still open. My fingers were tracing the cork's ridges like Braille, remembering the sound of his laughter before it turned into background noise. He was pacing behind me, talking about guest lists like it was a business meeting. "She'll be alone for the holidays," he said. Be nice. That word, nice, landed the way a lock clicks. Not loud, but final. I told him I'd make it perfect, of course. That's what I do. Perfect meals, perfect smiles, perfect lies. When he kissed my cheek that night, I noticed his cologne was different. Darker, heavier, the kind you wear when you want to be remembered. The kind you wear for someone new. Later, while he slept, I scrolled through old photos of us, the two of us on a boat, laughing, sunburned and free, and tried to find the exact frame where love turned into habit. But it wasn't one moment. It was a slow fade, a dimming light you only notice once you're standing in the dark. I used to think I could fix it if I just tried harder, smiled longer, cooked better. Now, as the city glitters outside our window, I realize some stories don't need saving. They need rewriting. And tomorrow, the first line of mine will begin with an invitation. The next morning, he left early, said he had a meeting downtown. He always has meetings downtown. Ha ha ha, always. The door clicked shut at 7:12 a.m., the same sound every day. I stood in the silence that followed, watching my reflection in the microwave glass. A woman halfway between waiting and knowing. The coffee pot gurgled, filling the kitchen with the smell of something warm in a place that felt cold. By habit, I checked the counter. His phone wasn't there. He never leaves it anymore. Once he used to forget it all the time. Now it's glued to his hand, like a lifeline or a secret. I tried to tell myself not to look for proof. Proof changes everything. It turns doubt into evidence, and once you have evidence, you can't unsee it. Still, curiosity is just grief wearing makeup. Later that afternoon, while folding laundry, I heard it. A soft chime from his jacket pocket. His work phone. The one he didn't lock because there's nothing personal on this one. A message preview flashed across the screen. Willow, can't wait to see you again. Missed your voice last night? I stared at those words until they blurred. My heart didn't race. It slowed. It actually slowed. It's strange, the way betrayal doesn't explode. It seeps, quiet, heavy, like smoke under a closed door. I didn't open the message. I didn't need to. The preview was enough to light a fuse I didn't know I was holding. When he came home that night, I was still sitting at the table, the same glass of wine untouched. He kissed my hair, said something about traffic, then complained about dinner being cold. His voice was calm, casual, the same one he uses with his clients. I nodded, said I'd reheat it. I didn't mention the message. I wanted to hear how easily he could lie. Busy day? You know how it is, he said, loosening his tie. Calls, meetings, people. Willow? That stopped him. A tiny pause, barely noticeable, but enough. His hand froze midair. Then the smile, practiced, polite. She's back at the firm, he said. We had a catch-up call. Old times, That phrase sank deep. He used to say it about me once. Dinner was quiet after that. The only sound was the knife against the plate, the low hum of the refrigerator, the way silence thickened between us like fog. Later, he scrolled through his phone in bed, the blue light flickering across his face. When I turned toward him, he angled the screen away, the way people do when they've forgotten what honesty feels like. "You're quiet tonight," he said. "Just tired." "You worry too much." He kissed my forehead, turned off the lamp, and fell asleep within minutes. I lay there, eyes open in the dark, listening to the rhythm of his breathing, steady, even like someone who believes he's safe. That was the night I stopped crying over what I couldn't prove. I started observing instead. The next few days, I watched everything. The way his phone never left his side. The way he smiled when it buzzed. The way he showered before bed, always after texting someone. And the way he suddenly had new shirts, softer, more fitted, things I didn't buy. Each clue was a thread, small but certain. And when I pulled one, the fabric of our life began to unravel quietly, politely. Just like him. He said he had another late client dinner Thursday. He left wearing cologne that didn't belong to the man who worked overtime. It belonged to the man who was being watched. I didn't follow him. I didn't need to. I already knew where he was going. Instead, I opened my laptop and searched his name in our shared email account. Old receipts, forwarded itineraries, hotel confirmations that didn't match the business trips on our calendar. One stood out, a reservation for 2 at the Peninsula Hotel. The timestamp? The night he told me he was working late. The proof was there, digital and undeniable. But even then, I didn't explode. I didn't scream. I just sat there, staring at his name printed neatly on a confirmation meant for someone else. My throat burned, my hands trembled, and a tiny, bitter laugh escaped. Ha ha ha. Because of course it was the Peninsula. He always liked the view. There was a time I would have begged, confronted, pleaded. But begging only feeds the lie, and pleading only teaches them you'll stay. So I poured myself a glass of wine, opened the window, and let the cold air hit my face. Oh, it stung, sharp and honest. The city below glittered like nothing had changed. But everything had. He came home past midnight, smelling of whiskey and winter. I asked if he'd eaten. Grabbed something downtown. Alone? He looked at me then, really looked for the first time in weeks. Of course alone, he said. Why would you even ask that? Because the truth was already sitting on my screen. He brushed past me, kissed my cheek, and went straight to bed. The sound of the shower followed, long, steady, deliberate. I stood in the hallway watching the steam curl under the door. My chest ached and a tear slipped before I could stop it. But then something in me hardened. That's when I realized something crucial. Men like Hudson don't lie because they're afraid of being caught. They lie because they believe you won't do anything when you finally are. I turned off the kitchen light, the apartment bathed in the soft glow of the Christmas tree. The ornaments shimmered in the silence, each one a reflection of the woman I used to be, trusting, patient, naive. That version of me is gone now. I wiped the wine from the counter, deleted the message thread from his jacket phone, and whispered to the empty room, voice trembling, but steady enough to mean it. You wanted me to behave, Hudson. I will. And that's when I stopped being naive. The night it all crystallized began like every other. Snow pressed against the windows, muffling the city into silence. Hudson was asleep, one arm flung across my side of the bed, the way he always did when he wanted to look affectionate in the morning. The clock blinked 2:17 a.m., that restless hour when the truth tends to whisper louder than dreams. His phone lit up on the nightstand. Once, twice, then again. The screen faced me this time. A message preview appeared, short and cruel in its intimacy. Willow, missed you tonight. Counting hours. My chest tightened, but not from shock, from clarity. The kind that feels like standing too close to lightning. Ah, that sting. That split second where everything burns but you still don't move. I picked up the phone. The passcode was still the same, our anniversary. Ha ha ha, our anniversary. A number he'd never bother to change because, in his mind, I was too harmless to look. The message thread opened into a scroll of betrayal disguised as affection. Hundreds of exchanges months deep, photos of hotel rooms, jokes about clients, phrases that used to belong to me. She's sweet but simple. She'll never suspect a thing. Simple. That word again, the one that had followed me like perfume I never chose. I felt it in my bones, a quiet ache that turned into something colder. For a long moment I just stared. The room around me pulsed with quiet, his breathing, the hum of the heater, the soft flicker of the city lights against the ceiling. He had written to her that he couldn't wait for Christmas. That it would be the perfect night to set things in motion. I scrolled further. If she files first, the prenup holds. I'll look like the victim. By New Year's, it's done. Every letter felt surgical, cold, intentional. My lips parted, but no sound came out, just a tiny broken laugh. Ha ha ha. Of course he'd call it strategy. I set the phone back exactly where it was, face down, as if the truth could unsee me. My hands didn't shake. My pulse didn't race. It was a stillness I'd never felt before, the calm that comes when pain turns into precision. I walked to the kitchen barefoot, the tile cold under my feet. Outside, the city was asleep. Inside, my world had stopped breathing. I poured a glass of water, not because I was thirsty, but because I needed to hear something other than silence. The fridge light spilled across the counter, catching a reflection of me I barely recognized, eyes wide, steady, almost serene. Who was she? Not the woman who believed in promises. Someone else now. That was the moment the grief drained away and left strategy in its place. I opened the drawer where we kept our paperwork. Birth certificates. Tax forms. The prenuptial agreement his lawyer had insisted on, for formality. I'd signed it without reading. Love makes fools out of reasonable women. The document was thick, sterile, filled with words that once meant nothing, until one line caught my eye. In the event of proven adultery by the husband, this agreement is null and void. Proven. That single word lit the fuse. I took photos of every page, every signature, every clause. Each click of the camera sounded like a heartbeat. Proof, evidence, control. The apartment was quiet except for the hum of the heater and the faint ticking of the clock. I glanced toward the bedroom door. He was still asleep, the man plotting my disappearance from his life, dreaming soundly in the bed I made. For the first time, I didn't feel small. I felt awake. I sat at the dining table with my laptop. The glow of the screen washed over the wedding photo on the wall. Two people smiling like they knew the future. Weeping softly, I whispered, "Look at us. How proud we were of that lie." I clicked on a blank tab and started searching. Private Investigator Chicago Infidelity. Names scrolled past. Ads, reviews, until one line stood out. Carmen Delgado, former detective that specializes in domestic cases. Discreet, documented. I copied her email. The cursor blinked in the message window like a heartbeat. Subject, inquiry body. My husband is having an affair. I need proof. Please contact me. I hovered over send for a moment. Then I pressed it. The message whooshed away into the dark, and with it, the last piece of the woman who used to wait for explanations. I walked back to the bedroom and stood in the doorway. Hudson shifted slightly, murmuring something in his sleep, a name I didn't recognize at first because he said it so softly. Willow. That was the final confirmation. Not the messages. Not the prenup. The sound of her name on his lips while he dreamed beside me. I didn't wake him. I didn't scream or cry. I just watched him for a moment, memorizing the man he pretended to be. The man I once thought loved me. When I turned off the light, the room slipped into darkness, and for the first time in months, I felt nothing. No fear, no love, just clarity. I climbed into bed, pulled the blanket over my shoulder, and stared at the ceiling until the sun began to bleed through the curtains. He would wake up soon and kiss me like always. He'd pour coffee, check his phone, and walk out the door, never realizing that his carefully constructed lies had already begun to collapse, and I would let him go, let him walk straight into the trap he built for me. I didn't cry that night. I just started planning, Carmen replied before sunrise. Her message was brief, professional, terrifyingly calm. Meet me tomorrow at Wicker Park Cafe. Back table. Blue jacket. 2 p.m. The timing felt deliberate, like she already knew urgency lived inside me now. All morning, I moved through the apartment like an actress rehearsing a role I'd already mastered. Pouring coffee, tidying counters, pretending not to hear the vibration of Hudson's second phone from his coat pocket. He didn't notice what I was doing. He never did. Ha ha ha. Of course he didn't. By noon, he left for work with his usual careless kiss on the forehead. The same one that used to mean I love you and now just meant don't think too much. As the elevator doors closed behind him, I felt something click inside me. The fear was gone. Only strategy remained. At 1:30, I arrived at the cafe. The smell of burnt espresso and rainwater clung to the air. Carmen was exactly how her emails sounded. Sharp, deliberate. The kind of woman who'd stopped apologizing years ago. She extended a hand. Bella? I nodded, my throat tightening with relief. Finally, someone who didn't see me as fragile. We talked for nearly an hour. She asked for details, names, dates, patterns. Her pen never stopped moving. I told her about Willow, the messages, the prenup. When I finished, she leaned back and studied me. You don't want confrontation, she said finally. You want confirmation, evidence that speaks louder than denial. I want leverage. Good, because revenge without leverage is just noise. Her words hit me like truth wrapped in steel. By the time I left, we had a plan. 2 weeks of surveillance, financial tracing, photo documentation, proof strong enough to burn through legal paper. That night, I cooked his favorite meal. He walked in at 9:14 p.m., smiled when he saw the candles, and called me sweetheart. Ha ha ha, sweetheart. How small that word felt now. I watched him eat, every bite measured, every word cataloged. He told me he had a big client dinner next Thursday. I told him I might visit my sister. We were both lying, and neither cared. After he fell asleep, I checked my inbox. Carmen had already sent the first update form to fill out. Routine habits, usual hangouts, vehicle info. I listed everything. Every detail I gave her felt like reclaiming oxygen. 3 days later, the first set of photos arrived. Hudson and Willow at the Four Seasons bar, his hand on her knee, her smile angled toward his future. I didn't cry. I didn't even blink. My chest tightened, but no tears came. The kind of hurt that runs too deep for sound. Instead, I printed the pictures, slid them into an envelope, and placed them inside a book on the shelf titled Love and Other Illusions. By week 2, Carmen sent video footage, a parking garage kiss, time-stamped precisely between client meetings. Each frame erased another version of me that used to wait up for him. He still texted me sweetly from those meetings. Don't wait up. Late again, love you. I'd reply, of course, darling, be safe. Because the trick to revenge isn't anger, it's consistency. Ha ha ha. Oh, the art of pretending. Make them think you're still asleep while you build the exit. I began preparing for Christmas dinner like it was a performance. Table settings ordered. New linen napkins, his favorite wine. Every detail chosen to disarm suspicion. Hudson noticed my enthusiasm and mistook it for forgiveness. See? You're finally relaxing, he said one night, wrapping his arms around me. Maybe I'm just learning, I whispered. Learning what? Timing. He laughed, kissed my neck, and went back to scrolling his phone. Meanwhile, Carmen delivered her final report. Hotel receipts, credit card statements, dates aligning perfectly with his lies. She'd even found something extra, an adultery clause buried deeper in the prenup, exactly as I'd read. Her message came with a single line. He's given you everything you need. All that's left is presentation. Presentation. The word made me smile through a quiet sigh. I used to build events for a living. I knew exactly how to stage one. The next day, I bought new stationery, thick, cream paper, expensive enough to feel intentional. On it, I wrote 2 invitations. One to Willow Brennan, one to someone she wouldn't expect. Willow's read simply, Christmas dinner, December 25th, 6 p.m., Lincoln Park residence. Hudson insisted you join us. The second envelope was trickier. I typed that one, no handwriting, sent from a private email Carmen helped me mask. It went to Richard Morrison, one of the firm's senior partners, and, according to Carmen's research, Willow's other connection, his Reed, Mr. Morrison, I believe you deserve to know the truth about the woman you're promoting. Proof available upon request. You'll find it easiest to verify in person, December 25th, 6 p.m. I sealed both letters like wedding invitations. 2 guests, 1 stage, and a performance none of them would forget. Over the next few days, I returned to my role, cooking, decorating, smiling. Each ornament I hung felt like another step closer to freedom. Sometimes I hummed quietly, the way I used to before life turned gray. Sometimes I caught Hudson watching me with curiosity, maybe even pride, as if my composure was proof of devotion. He still didn't notice what I was doing. The night before Christmas, I double-checked the seating arrangement. 7 places. 6 expected. I polished the wine glasses until I could see my reflection split in 2. The woman I was, and the one I'd become. He came up behind me, slid his hands around my waist. You've outdone yourself, Bella. It's going to be perfect, I said. I knew you'd make it special. Oh, it'll be special, I promised, and set the final fork in place. When he walked away, I adjusted one last candle until its flame burned steady. That's when I realized I wasn't nervous anymore. This wasn't revenge, it was reclamation. Outside, snow began to fall, soft and deliberate, the way truth always does. Quiet first, then relentless. I checked my phone. One new message from Carmen. Everything's set. Camera's ready. Good luck, Bella, I smiled. Luck had nothing to do with it. Tomorrow, at 6 p.m., the doorbell would ring. Hudson would open it with that same confident smile. He'd expect to see his ex standing there. He thought she was the guest. He was wrong. Christmas evening arrived dressed in gold and silence. Snow fell in sheets outside the wide glass windows, and the apartment glowed like a photograph. Warm lights, polished silver, a fire crackling softly in the corner. I'd rehearsed every second of this. Every breath, every smile, every polite gesture. My heart fluttered beneath the calm, steady rhythm of my voice. Hudson moved through the living room with practiced charm, topping off wine glasses, straightening his tie, humming to himself. Ha 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 ha. He looked every bit the man he pretended to be. Successful, composed, untouchable. Dinner smells incredible, he said. It should, I replied softly. Everything tonight had to be perfect. He kissed my cheek, oblivious to the tremor just under my calm. If only he could feel how cold my skin had gone. The doorbell rang once, light and melodic, a sound so ordinary it almost felt cruel. Hudson grinned. That'll be her. He walked to the door, rehearsing his expression like an actor before curtain call. When he opened it, the air changed. Not her, not Willow. Standing there, wrapped in a black wool coat, was Richard Morrison. Tall, composed, confusion etched across his face. Hudson, Richard said. Evening, Hudson blinked. Richard? What are you doing here? I was invited, Richard said, stepping inside. By your wife. Hudson turned toward me, confusion twisting into unease. I smiled, polite, hostess perfect. It's Christmas, darling. I thought we could use more company. Before Hudson could respond, the elevator dinged again. Willow stepped out, coat shimmering with snow, clutching a bottle of wine and a smile that faltered the moment she saw Richard. Richard? She whispered. Willow, he said tightly. Hudson froze between them, the color draining from his face. The air pulsed with the faint sound of sleigh bells somewhere outside, mocking the silence inside. Bella, Hudson began, voice careful. What's going on? I walked toward the dining table, brushing invisible dust from a chair. Just dinner, I said. Sit down. Everyone's here now. They obeyed, awkwardly, mechanically, like puppets unsure who held the strings. For a few minutes I played the part. Poured wine, passed dishes, let the small talk scrape against the tension. Ha ha ha, oh the irony. Passing potatoes between liars. Richard barely touched his food. Willow's hand shook each time she lifted her glass. Hudson smiled too much. Finally, I set my fork down. The sound echoed like a gavel. I wanted to thank you all for coming, I said, voice steady. Tonight's special to me. It's the first Christmas I'll actually remember. Hudson's smile twitched. Bella, no, please. Let me finish. I reached behind me, picked up a small wrapped envelope from the counter, and placed it in front of Richard. A little gift, I said. Proof of something you probably suspected but never confirmed. He opened it. Inside were printed photos, grainy, time-stamped, undeniable. The silence that followed was thick, alive, almost humming. You've been seeing her, Richard said, voice low, turning to Hudson. Excuse me? Hudson stammered. And you, Richard's gaze flicked to Willow, have been playing both sides. Willow's lips parted, trembling, searching for words that wouldn't come. Her eyes filled with tears. Oh, crocodile ones, maybe. Hudson rose halfway from his chair. Bella, what the hell is this? Evidence, I said. For the prenup. For me? He stared at me like I was someone he'd never met. You went through my private life. You handed it to me, I interrupted. Every text, every lie, every dinner you thought I didn't notice. The fire crackled behind us, indifferent witness to everything. You invited them here to humiliate me? He hissed. No, I said, standing slowly. To free myself. Willow pushed her chair back, eyes glossy. Hudson, you said— Quiet, he snapped. You have no idea what she's capable of. Oh, I think she does, I said, sliding a USB drive across the table. Cameras, Carmen Delgado investigations. You'll find everything nicely documented. Emails, hotel footage, timestamps. Merry Christmas, Richard stood clutching the envelope. This is enough to get both of you suspended, he said, voice cold. You've embarrassed this firm beyond repair. He turned toward me. Mrs. Whitmore, I apologize for— No need, I said gently. You didn't betray me. He nodded once and left without another word. Willow followed him, but not before glancing back at Hudson, a look halfway between apology and panic. A tear slid down her cheek as the door shut softly behind her, and the apartment exhaled. Ah, finally, silence again. Hudson turned to me, eyes sharp now, mask gone. You've ruined everything, he said quietly. No, I said. I just corrected the story. He stepped closer, lowering his voice. You think this makes you powerful? You'll regret it, I smiled, slow and deliberate. Maybe, but at least I'll regret it honestly. He stared at me for a long moment, calculating, then defeated. He poured himself another drink, the ice clinking like punctuation. Ha ha ha, the sound of his downfall. So what now? He asked. Now? I glanced toward the clock. Now you finish your drink. Pack a bag, and when you leave, you don't come back. He opened his mouth, but the words never made it out. Instead, he looked around the room, at the candles, the empty chairs, the evidence spread like confetti, and finally saw what I'd built, a stage dressed as forgiveness, a performance that ended with truth. He drained the glass, set it down with a soft thud, and walked out without looking back. The door closed quietly. No shouting, no pleading, just silence. I stood there for a while, listening to the hum of the heater, the ticking of the clock, the faint echo of the snow against glass. The Christmas lights flickered, their reflection catching on the empty wine glasses, red, green, gold, beautiful, final. I gathered the plates, stacked them neatly, and washed each one by hand. The motions were slow, deliberate and sacred. Outside, a siren wailed somewhere far away. Inside, peace settled over me like snowfall. I dried my hands, turned off the lights, and whispered into the stillness. Voice trembling but calm, almost a sigh of release. He thought she was the guest. He was wrong. When the door shut behind Hudson, the sound lingered longer than I expected. It wasn't loud, not even final, just the clean click of absence. Oh, that sound, so soft, yet so sharp it cut through me. For a moment I stayed there, watching the door as if it might open again, as if he'd remember something worth coming back for. He didn't. The candles burned lower, pools of wax forming tiny halos on the tablecloth. Each flame flickered against the silverware, turning reflections into ghosts. The air still held the perfume of roasted rosemary and wine, a scent meant for celebration that now clung like irony. Ah ha ha. Celebration, what a word for a night like this. I sat down where Richard had been. The chair was still warm. Across from me, Hudson's untouched plate waited, steak cooling, wine half gone, the napkin folded too neatly for a man unraveling. Outside, snow thickened. The streetlights blurred into watercolor smudges. Inside, everything was finally still. I thought about the years behind us. Every promise, every apology, every version of me that believed next time meant something. Each memory felt like dust under glass, preserved, distant, harmless. Oh. Memories that used to feel like home, now just echoes in an empty room. On the counter, my phone buzzed once. A message from Carmen. It's done. He'll sign, "You're free, free." The word felt foreign, heavy, almost unreal. I let it sit on my tongue, whispering it like a prayer, weeping quietly as it began to sound like truth. Freedom isn't loud. It's quiet, like exhaling after holding your breath too long. I walked to the window and pressed my palm against the cold glass. The city looked different, softer, maybe because I finally stopped looking for reflections that weren't mine. Down on the sidewalk, a couple laughed, pulling their scarves tight against the wind. Laughter. It stung and soothed at the same time. Life went on. It always does. Behind me, the tree lights blinked lazily, throwing color across the walls. Red, green, gold. Tiny heartbeats of light that didn't know the story was over. I turned off the music that had been looping all evening. The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was honest. Somewhere between heartbreak and revenge, I'd found something unexpected. Calm. Not victory, not satisfaction. Just calm, I began clearing the table, one plate at a time. The sound of ceramic meeting water echoed softly through the apartment. Cleaning felt almost holy, like scrubbing the remnants of an old life away. When I reached Hudson's glass, I paused. His fingerprints shimmered faintly along the rim, ghost marks of the man who always thought everything was his. Ha ha ha! Even now his prints tried to linger. I rinsed it clean and watched them disappear down the drain. The snow outside grew heavier. The flakes pressed against the window, melting instantly, 1,000 tiny goodbyes. On the mantel, our wedding photo still stood in its silver frame. I lifted it, studied the younger versions of us frozen in laughter. We looked happy, but maybe we were just hopeful. Hope and denial photographed the same. The realization made my throat tighten. Foolish, beautiful hope. I didn't smash the frame. I didn't throw it away. I slid it into a drawer, face down. Some things don't deserve destruction. They deserve distance. For the first time in months, I walked through the apartment without tiptoeing. Every room echoed differently now, bigger somehow, like it had been waiting for me to take up space again. In the bedroom, the bed looked impossibly wide. I stripped the sheets, stuffed them into a bag, opened the window, and let the cold air rush in. It smelled like snow and beginnings. When I climbed under a fresh blanket, exhaustion found me instantly. Not the kind that comes from sadness, the kind that follows release. I thought about what would happen next. The legal meetings, the signatures, the explanations that would turn private betrayal into public paperwork. And I thought about Willow, how she'd wake up tomorrow to a very different future. Maybe she'd hate me. Maybe she'd thank me. Ha ha ha. Maybe she'd just learn. It didn't matter. Justice isn't about who claps for you. It's about who can finally sleep at night. I closed my eyes and listened. The heaters hum, the snow tapping against the glass. My own heartbeat, steady, unhurried. Somewhere inside that rhythm, I realized I didn't hate him. Hatred takes energy, and I was done giving him any more of mine. He'd taken my trust, my time, my silence, but not my peace. That was always mine to reclaim. I whispered into the dark, not for him, but for myself. I'm okay. It wasn't a declaration. It was a truth, a quiet, fragile truth that finally felt believable. The apartment dimmed as the last candle gave out, leaving only the soft glow from the tree. I watched the lights flicker one last time, then closed my eyes. Outside, the world kept falling, soft and relentless. Inside, everything finally stopped. By morning, there would be footprints in the snow leading away from this building. None of them would be mine. It's strange how peace doesn't sound like what you expect. There's no music, no applause, just quiet. The kind that seeps into your bones after too much noise, too much pretending. The kind that fills every corner of a space once crowded with noise. A week has passed since that night. The lawyers called, the signatures were filed, and the apartment is officially mine. He left behind his cufflinks, a few suits, and a drawer full of things that never belonged to me anyway. Ha ha ha, of course he did. He always left his clutter for me to clean up. I boxed them neatly and sent them to his office, no note attached. Closure doesn't need punctuation, it just needs honesty. Sometimes I sit by the window with my morning coffee and watch the city wake up. For the first time in years, I don't wonder where he is. I just breathe. Finally, I just breathe. The air tastes lighter now. I've learned that revenge isn't about destruction. It's about revelation. It's the moment you stop begging to be understood and start choosing to be free. I didn't win that night. I simply stopped losing. There are still days when memories sneak in, soft and uninvited. But they don't hurt anymore. They just remind me how far I've walked from the version of myself who thought love meant endurance. Weeping softly once in a while, but it's a gentler ache now, one that feels like growth. He invited his past to dinner. I served the truth instead, and when I set that table, I wasn't planning his downfall. I was setting my own seat at a life I finally belonged to. What about you? If someone tried to write your story for you, would you let them hold the pen? Ha ha ha, I wouldn't anymore.